Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and joining me this time around is a writer and daughter combination of a book that's due out later this year, October, with mental health at its key story point, a subject that I am really passionate about. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Ethan and Naomi Sacks. Ethan and Naomi, how's it going?
Hey Johnny, how's it going?
Yeah, going very well, sir. Very well. You know, cannot complain at all. Welcome to you both, Naomi. Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, that's good. Cool, excellent. We're here to talk about a book you've got coming out, Haunted Girl. Yeah. Let's start at the top and work our way down. Haunted Girl. What's the 411? What's the big deal?
Okay, well, I'll start it off and I'll let Naomi pick it up.
Please do.
So basically, the origin of A Haunted Girl is 4 years ago. Our family went through a mental health crisis at the time. Naomi battles depression and anxiety and was hospitalized. And at the time, I was writing Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and in the waiting room of the hospital, I thought of an idea. I wanted to do a story about a girl who is battling very similar things and then finds out that she's the only person who can sort of prevent this supernatural apocalypse. And so she has to learn to sort of persevere. And then here, 4 years later, my daughter's in a place where she could write it with me. And so
Cool.
It's coming October 11th, the first issue from Syzygy, which is an imprint of Image Comics. And we're working with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They're going to have a resource guide in the back. And our artist partner is Marco Lorenzana. The art is amazing. The covers, the variant covers are amazing. We got like Joe Quesada, Jessica Fong, like a whole bunch of great artists involved as well. So we're really excited. I don't know if you want to say anything just yet, or...
I feel like that was good.
Yeah, pretty much nailed it. He does this writing, talking thing for a living. And it's like, man, son of a gun. Leave something in the can, you know what I'm saying? Oh, no. So, Naomi, you went through something traumatic. Now you kind of add to the book, you co-write the book based on your experience. How does that make you feel? I mean, first of all, I have to, the bravery to talk about something so personal is overwhelming, and I mean that with all great sincerity. Going through a traumatic period of life and then writing to help others. I mean, that's a pretty brave thing to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been really interesting because I don't know. In some ways, it was a really long time ago, and in some ways, it wasn't that long ago at all. And sometimes it can get pretty intense because I am writing a lot based on my experiences. So there are times when I do like bring up old feelings and they can come back very intense. And there are times where I will need to, take a break from the writing when it gets too intense and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it is pretty cool and pretty empowering that I am now able to write about it. That it's like, I don't know, it's obviously intense when I write about it, but then like there's like, I guess with the knowledge that like it gets better in the future. And then in the future, there's something very cathartic and empowering about that.
Were you scared about sort of reopening that kind of worms to delve back in a little bit?
To be honest, I wasn't really scared before I did it. And then it didn't really cross my mind that much that might be an issue. It's just like, oh, sure, let's write. And then oh, that was more intense than I was expecting. But
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can say I was nervous about it.
Okay.
Because it's not even just two people writing. It's that it's going to go out in the world, and I don't know if she's told all her friends or like, because once you open that Pandora's box, there's no closing it. And then also like, you're sort of airing out these very personal things to strangers. We do press or just all these readers are going to read about, even though it's not a documentary, it's still very much based on real feelings and experiences. So I was a little nervous about it, but at the same time, if every line of dialogue that's basically spoken by the main character and the teenage characters, and then the therapy sessions, like if I had tried to write it, I think it would have felt fake.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't have had that authenticity. So I think like she makes it. She basically took it from a 2-dimensional idea to like a 3-dimensional story.
Give it the weight and gravitas it needed.
Yeah. So otherwise, it just would have been a story of make believe that I could only try to guess at. You know what I mean?
So was it Mark Twain that said, "Write what you know"? I think is that the original quote, something like that. So scary, not at first, Naomi, but then these feelings come back. Were you worried about the kind of reliving those aspects and them taking hold of your life again? Or the support network you must have in place, were they aware so they can help you with that? And same as Ethan, same for you, because I mean, it's I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but mental health is a very personal journey. When you care about someone who is going through a mental health crisis, you feel as much on the sidelines as you do as part of it, and it's hard to kind of to balance that out. So Naomi first, and then Ethan. That was a long question, wasn't it? I should try shorter questions. So, sorry. So were you thinking, kind of like bring up those feelings again? Were you worried they were going to take hold, or did your support network support you in that?
Maybe right after writing a scene, there is like, I guess, that fear.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Ethan, from the sidelines looking in, I think she's been super brave, and she's and you said you were nervous and maybe not so scared, but then you kind of think, well, we're all human, right? That whole what if scenario comes into play.
I think like battles with mental health and depression specifically is like it's a lifelong battle. It's not like suddenly 4 years later she's found the miracle pill or the miracle magic word or something that is cured. But I think the difference is she's 4 years later has tools to work through stuff that maybe, and we've learned a lot, like as parents, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and like what not to say, and like all this kind of stuff, and I'm still learning every day. Like I just think it's and I think anyone who goes through mental health struggles knows it's a lifelong battle, but the silver lining is, the hope is that you get to a place where you learn, like you're working through therapy or whether it's medicine, therapy, a combination, but also just learning, growing yourself, and you learn things and you get better at navigating it. It's like a surfer who learns to surf bigger and bigger, like can surf the waves, whereas the first time they went in the water, the waves knocked them around, so I think that's how I see it, at least.
Okay. Do you think, again, question for you both, do you think that mental health still carries the stigma that it used to? I always think when, over here in the UK, our biggest risk factor of men of a certain age, 35 to 55, because their upbringing, they don't know how to talk about their feelings. They don't know how to cry at Doctor Who, for example. I cry at Doctor Who all the time, just so you know. Especially when Kane.
I'm glad you could bring that up publicly.
I'm honest about mental health. I mean, I think mental health is a massive proponent of society, and it can be damaged in so many ways that we don't even we take for granted. You see something on Facebook or social media, and before you know it, your insecurities flare up, and then you're down the spiral, and then that's kind of the onset of it is. I see how many people post things about self-harm, things about suicide. In my day job, I'll give you some history. In my day job, part of my role is I'm a safeguarding officer. So I'm the type of person who people will confide that they're thinking of harming themselves or thinking of harming other people, and I'm the person to call to talk to the person to make sure that they're okay and put them into a road to recovery, whether that be something formal or informal. So, when I talked at the start, when I said mental health is important to me, it's not a line. It's actually genuinely very, very important to me.
It's a very important thing you do. It's a very important thing you do.
And I think, I think books like Haunted Girl have an opportunity, yes, to entertain. That's why people buy a comic book, yeah, to entertain. But I think if there's any level of resonance with what Naomi you went through, with Ethan, what you went through as a parent, if there's any level of resonance in readers who are going through that, it's got to be worth it, right? It's got to be worth, writing what you know because you've lived it.
I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. How were Image when you broached up the project? Because
well, I have to say,
first of all, let's go back to the question.
Yes,
does mental health carry a stigma? And if so, how are Image okay with talking about that as a
sure. I'll jump in first unless you want. I do think there's a generational shift. Like, I do think mental health had a stigma, certainly in my generation, and a lot of times people went through things without fully ever being diagnosed or realizing it to some extent, or just having to find their own way without help. Mm-hmm. And there is some of that today, but as an example, I just started therapy a few years ago for the first time in my life, and Naomi has anxiety as well, and I see all these things that lead me to believe I've had anxiety all my life and just never knew it, and I just sort of had to power through it. But my mind is always racing at night. I have trouble sleeping. There's a million thoughts going through my head. All these things that are textbook, but I just never
have you tried mindfulness?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot by sort of secondhand experience Naomi's gone through, and but I do think even now there's some of it. My daughter went to a science and math school, and no one talks about it. A lot of the other parents, because it's you're supposed to hyperachieve, and if it gets out, maybe you're not gonna, college finds out, maybe, or university maybe they'll look badly upon you when you're trying to get in, and some kind of mentality among the parents. I don't think that was among the students.
Yes.
Students too, or
no, I don't. I was going to say I never felt that was the case among students.
Yeah, and so I started a parents support group,
cool.
And we would have 20 people, and they were all going through the same things, and they didn't know that other people were going through the same things.
That's a great point. Absolutely.
So you're on an island, and you think it's just all water, and you don't realize that there's a million of these islands in that same ocean.
That's a great point. I was going to say, and I didn't know how to say it politely. Naomi, your story is super personal to you. Other people will have similar stories, the similar sort of issue. Well, I don't know what. So we'll have similar outcomes with mental health, and they'll have those same battles. Is kind of from that point of view. I read somewhere, probably Twitter, so I don't know how accurate this is. You know what Twitter's like. And yes, I'm still calling it Twitter. No, it hasn't gone X on me yet. What was I going to say? See, I'm done with the news. The difference between depression and anxiety. Depression is worrying about the past. Anxiety is worrying about the future. Now, I'm a layman with this, so that sounds kind of right. Does that have a grain of truth to it, do you think? As people who've lived through that?
I mean, I can see where that comes from. I think it's a lot more nuanced.
It's absolutely more complicated than that, for sure.
The weird thing is, it can feed into each other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to? You're the expert.
No. In some ways, I guess it's easy to think of them as opposites. I guess to overgeneralize, anxiety is too much, and depression is just not enough in terms of feelings, I guess. A different way of oversimplifying it. But I don't know, I remember there was a while when I would get so anxious that it would make me depressed. Yeah. And so my depression kind of became sort of a symptom of my anxiety, which doesn't make sense. When I think about it, how do you feel so much that you don't feel at all? And yet, I don't know, things happen like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's interesting because I think, yeah, you get so anxious about things from that you don't know what to do next or how to do things next, so you just don't do, and then that feeds into the depression element, at least as I understand it. Do you find, or did you find, that you would worry about not being depressed? You know, like there's a group of people who worry about not worrying. Does that make sense? Did depression become kind of like a comfort blanket?
Lose some of that identity, I guess, or like that.
Or is that too personal?
I've definitely heard that from other people. I'm not sure that I've necessarily felt that myself, although at least not in the same way. I guess like I didn't fear like going to like, I don't know, a better place, so to speak. But I guess like once I got to like a better place, so to speak, there was like almost a fear of like nothing's wrong. Am I missing something?
Yeah.
There's like kind of similarly, but
like, are you waiting for like the other shoe to drop?
Yes, that's a good point. That's a great way of putting it. Definitely, you know, cool. I also, Nathan, sorry, Ethan, I'd like to say that you absolutely said right early on there that mental health is an ongoing thing. It's not. There's not a magic pill. There's not a magic word. You can't say Shazam and everything's okay. So I think that's a really good observation to make. We all have mental health. It's how we react and deal with that in the circumstances that get thrown our way as to whether it's good mental health or potentially the negative mental health, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Look at us. Excellent.
You had also asked about Image.
Yes, I did. I'll get back to the book. Sorry. So, Image. How did Image feel about the mental health aspect? It's just so interesting. It's so it's so key to the book. It's kind of
yeah. I mean,
I'm blown away by Naomi's bravery in talking about it.
Behind the scenes, this is a book that I've been working on with Marco Lorenzana, the artist, literally for 4 years, and is like kind of fine tuning it along the way. And we got close to a couple of deals, which I won't mention the publishers. And then one was just before the pandemic, and it fell apart. But we got a lot of no's from different places. And one of the reasons was, I think there was a nervousness about touching this particular subject. And all credit in this case goes to Chris Ryle, who's the publisher of Syzygy, which is an imprint of Image. So it's like a separate company
like a separate studio that works within Image.
Yeah, exactly. And he got it right away. Like just he knew what we were trying to do. You know, I don't think this necessarily was like the most obvious commercial idea in the history of the world, but he saw it, and it's kind of because here's the other thing too about this: it's not just the themes; it's like we're tackling this almost like a horror movie, So when you're looking at like potentially like reaching hopefully a lot of teens, and not just teens but older readers as well, like to have it as a kind of horror premise. That's also like you wonder probably if you're a publisher, like is it going to be it's not meant as a like a manga style art or anything like that. It's a very very kind of hyper realistic look to it.
All right. Okay, I get where you're coming from. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the benefits of companies like Image is that they have the commercial properties off to one side that make shed loads of money on, but because they've got that going on, they can spend time and produce a book or publish a book that maybe doesn't have the commercial legs.
Well,
from the get-go, but still, here's the thing: because it's got the Image brand on, people are going to go and think, and I think Image's reputation.
The thing is, just because something like this hasn't been done like this before, the themes are universal. Like so many people battle this that I do think that there is something universal and potentially like it could be interesting to a lot of people. And so we're basically tackling because depression and suicidal ideation and all this kind of stuff is scary, and so we're tackling it like a horror movie, and so that's our horror story. So like that's the idea, and so I think there is something there that hopefully will have people want to read it.
I'm intrigued from the get-go. Absolutely. It's funny how you mentioned suicidal ideation there. The first time as a safeguard, I had to ask that question. It was like I'm going to jump in and ask, do you have suicidal thoughts? And it's a question I have to ask. And the first time I asked it, I think my voice wavered. I'm like, I don't want to know what the answer is, but I have to know what the answer is. Now, I'm used to saying it because I've got the tools to deal with whatever the answer is. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't do. Do you feel like you're going to do something silly? That doesn't help anybody. What's silly to me could be not silly to somebody else. You need to be absolutely bang on the point. You can't mix your metaphors and that. You just have to be direct. And I think when you have that conversation, when you ask that question, it does. You get a genuine answer. So it's massive that it has to be talked about, and people shouldn't be scared to talk about it, because that's the only way you can help people who are going through stuff like that.
Yeah. To add on to that, there was a while, like after my first hospitalization, when people would ask me, do you feel safe? And they didn't really define that word. And I think what they were trying to ask was, do you have intent to harm yourself? Not just like desire, but like active intent. But I didn't understand what they meant by that, and they never fully defined it for me. So there were times when I would say no, not necessarily meaning that I had active intent, but they would still send me back to the emergency room. It would really help if I had a clear understanding of what that meant and why they kept sending me back to the emergency room.
I mean, from my point of view, you're absolutely right. The questions I ask are, do you have any suicidal intent? Do you have an active plan to take your own life? Those are my two questions. And then if they say yes to the active plan, my question is, how are you going to do it? It's not morbid curiosity. I'm thinking of the safety of the person.
Yeah.
If the person tells me, well, I live by myself, I'm going to take my medication, I'm going to overdose on my medication, I'm going to be ringing somebody and saying, right, this person needs to go into a crisis unit to keep them away from their medication, or at least their medication needs to be given at regular intervals rather than having free access to. So it's not because I'm interested or I'm gossipy at all. It's because I need to know so I can work out how best to help that person. And I don't think healthcare professionals shouldn't be scared of that question. You've got to ask that question. You've got to, or else, as you say, Naomi, it's just too ambiguous. Do you feel safe? What's that mean? Are you going to hurt yourself? Well, I could trip on the coffee table. Does that mean I have to go around like a room with put cushions around all the tables? No, crazy. All right, we're going to take a quick break there for our other shows. So, Ethan, you've worked with Marvel. You're going to work with DC. Where shall we go? Tell you what, there's a show coming up. It's going to be the No Prize Podcast. Check it out. No Prize Podcast for all your Marvel, Disney Plus, and MCU news. I'm sure the guys will be talking up the last episodes of Secret Invasion. You never know, something might actually happen in the show. Did I say that? Did I really say that? Right, we're going to have a quick look at the cover. It's our backdrop, so we'll add that in there now. That is an absolute gorgeous cover.
Yeah,
I'm liking this. There's all sorts of stuff going on. it's the protecting of the golden orb in the center. It feels like the protection. Then you've got the spiders. Why does it have to be spiders, man? Spiders, I hate spiders.
There is a big spider in the issue.
It's like, why?
Like
Spiders like Indiana Jones's snakes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, me too. That cover is from Joe Quesada. He is aside from being just one of the all-time greatest artists to ever pick up a pencil, he is a good friend, and he was a good friend to my family throughout this whole thing. So I've known him for years, and so he gave us this cover for free as a gift to promote this. Yeah, so you can imagine what that means for an independent comic to get a Joe Quesada cover. But yeah, actually, other people definitely helped us as well. We have covers by like Fico Asio and Paolo Villanelli, my Bounty Hunters collaborator for many years. He did one. Jessica Fong. Like, we just have a ton. I won't give away everything, but we have.
Save something for people. But yeah, it's an image book, so it's variant covers. Get yourself down to your local comic book shop. That's what you do. Get your pre-order going on. Naomi, what do you think of the art of the book? Does it suit?
I mean, I think they're all stunning, and it's really interesting because there's like so much variety. It's not all the covers have the same tone or color scheme or subject matter. There's like a lot of variety, and I think that makes it really interesting.
And what about Marco's interiors?
Oh, that art? Yeah, I vibe with that art too.
No, excellent. Because the book's about you, so did they take a artistic license? Or will we
so Cleo is her own person, but very much inspired. And of course, like, Naomi sort of breathed life into her character. So it's not the character is not Naomi per se, but inspired by her, and clearly yeah,
that's fine. That's cool. So, Ethan, we'll take a side step, if we may.
Yep.
Star Wars Bounty Hunters. Now,
can go any number of directions.
Well, you got to worry on this one. You don't need to worry that much. As you can tell by my fantastically silver quiff going on here, I'm a man of a certain generation, and I was absolutely distraught with Star Wars Volume 1, issue number 16, as we got it in the UK, chopped up into serial bits. Why? Because there's no Star Wars characters in it. There's this other dude, this cyborg dude called Vance. And I was gutted when I was a kid. I was like, who is this idiot replacing my Han Solo and Chewbacca? Fast forward to a couple of years ago, and boom, he's back again.
Yeah.
To be fair, I did grow to like Valance, so it's all good. What was it? Why bring him back? Of all the Star Wars bounty hunters, obviously, I suppose Fett was out of range because he's in God knows what in Disney. But Iggy, Bosk, Zuckus, Forlorn.
You got all those guys too.
Yeah, it's like I want to know
marching orders. I
want to know what Forlorn's all about, because you get him in this Star Wars figure. He's in one scene in The Empire Strikes Back, but no. Stuck with Valance again. It's like, oh my god.
Well, the good news is Bounty Hunters is it definitely became over time, but it is like an ensemble. So Valance is like the main character, but he's certainly not the only character. Mm-hmm. And the reason was when we launched 4 years ago, there were 4 books launched. There was Star Wars, Darth Vader, Dr. Aphra, and Bounty Hunters, and they were all we were in a unique position that we never really had anywhere else in Star Wars comics, in the history of Star Wars comics, which is the main books all happen at the same time in the same era. So you could do crossovers, you could have characters visit one to the other. So it's just a really rich time to write it. And with Bounty Hunters, Mark Panisia, the editor, wanted, because Valance was a Marvel character and we had permission to bring him back into canon. And it was just because, like Dr. Afro was our character, you could do a lot of things you couldn't necessarily do with a character that, you know, you could mess up live.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think people don't give writers of kind of licensed or tie-in books enough credit, because you've got to create suspense into a book of which you know nothing's going to happen to Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen to Darth Vader. The two are never going to meet. Han Solo is still going to stay in Carbonite for the entire middle part of this run, because that's where the era they're talking about. So you've got to be a little bit creative and think, right, how do we get people to care about these characters of which nothing's going to happen? You know, I mean, you could argue that Batman and Spider-Man are exactly the same nowadays, but still, you know.
Well, you
so
can always kill off one of those characters.
Yeah, they always get better.
Some cosmic thing, but you can't do that with Star Wars characters.
Because everyone, somebody, some fanboy, normally me, would say, that doesn't happen in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, just don't put
and Lucasfilm is they're very protective, obviously, because they have, I think, the most important franchise in pop culture history, and they're the caretakers. So they're very protective, and God bless them. They give us a lot of information, and they're just great to work with. But besides Valance, the CB, the editor-in-chief of Marvel, is a big Star Wars fan, and he wanted to have the classic bounty hunters. So Boba Fett was a little tricky because he kind of comes and goes because we can't overuse him. But the others like Bosk and Zuckuss can use them. So I've sort of made this more of a team book than a solo book, as it's gone on.
I think Boba Fett's an idiot, but what do I know? I mean,
he's the looking character though.
So, fair enough. He looks cool, but I mean, lucky reason I'm going to swear here. Dude goes out like a bitch in Return of the Jedi. You know what I'm saying? He gets knocked out by a blind man. You know, what a great bounty hunter you are, mate. Not at all. I do like how Marvel brought him back in one of the later issues around the 80s, I think it is, and he jetpacks out of the Sarlacc pit, and Jawas rescue him, and Han Solo's trying to save him from something. He goes Solo, and he remembers that he's supposed to be after Han Solo, at which point the Sandcrawler dives back into the Sarlacc, and you're like, oh, there you go. So, the massive reset button in the middle of the book, but yeah, it works. It's fine. Naomi, have you read the Star Wars books? Are you a Star Wars fan?
I am a Star Wars fan. I have not been good at keeping up with actually reading my dad's books. I get updates though.
I'm sure. So in my house, I love my wife dearly. I'll say that now. But we have trouble with the Star Wars timeline. Right? So it's like every time I put a Star Wars movie on, she'll say, "Is this the one with the teddy bears in?" I'm like, sweetheart, we never watched the one with the teddy bears in. Never watched that one. Never mind. Breaking news as we came to light as we were scheduled to record. Ethan, you got yourself a DC book.
Yeah, well, it's a short story to start. I have a couple of short stories that I did for DC to start, and we're talking about some other stuff. But I grew up as both a Marvel and DC fan. The first comic I ever read, I actually learned to read, were with Flash comics.
Okay.
But I loved Aquaman, was one of my favorites. And so my first story that they've announced is in a tie-in book to the new Aquaman movie, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, in the special. So I wrote a story about Orm, Ocean Master, and sort of what happens to him after the end of the first Aquaman movie. I don't want to spill anything beyond.
No. I'm not saying that at all.
It's a fun character to write. Like, as I'm writing, I have all these little things on my desk. So I have Aquaman.
Aquaman. Oh my God, there is one person that likes Aquaman. It's there.
No, I just.
To be honest, my wife likes Aquaman.
I've always liked. I don't, some of the B characters, if you will, both at Marvel and DC. Like I was not I appreciate Superman and Batman, but I was a Flash and Aquaman, person.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. My wife likes Aquaman, and when I say my wife likes Aquaman, I mean my wife.
Your wife likes Jason Momoa, right?
Yeah. We even watched the Conan movie from
my wife is an Aquaman fan.
Yeah. She loves Aquaman. I don't know. I used to have long hair. It never helped me get anything. I'll tell you that's nothing. Excellent. Okay, so everything's on the up and up. You've got, Star Wars. There are more Star Wars books coming out per week than there are Batman books, it seems. Star Wars is absolutely cornered
close one way or the other,
yeah, cornered a massive part of the Marvel publishing thing. I think that's great. I find that people who complain about Star Wars now, when I was a kid, the movie came out, then you had to wait till The Empire Strikes Back came out. Before there was nothing in between, apart from maybe the Marvel comic books.
I was 7 when Empire Strikes Back came out, and then
oh man, I feel old now. I feel even older.
I was crushed. I had to wait 3 years to find out.
How old was I? I was 7 or 8 when Star Wars came out. I see you, Naomi, laughing at my age. Yeah, I see you. Don't worry. All right.
You can see. I can't see all that well, so
I'm wearing glasses because I'm old man eyes. So yeah, we didn't have anything. We had Marvel comics, and that was it. And now people complain there's too much Star Wars. They're like, too much? Are you kidding me? Really? I think Marvel could subside on Star Wars product by itself. Less Spider-Man tie-in, more Star Wars. Although Spider-Verse is pretty cool. So I suppose.
Yes, I feel like there's enough for everybody to pick and choose what they love and what they want to
good show.
collect and read.
So with back to Haunted Girls. So how is it? 5 issues? Did I read?
4 issues.
4 issues. All right, 4 issues.
They're longer though, so it's
cool.
Each issue is like 26 to 28 pages. So it's
cool.
kind of like 5 issues worth of story.
Trade paperback down the line.
Yes.
Excellent. Cool. Available on Comixology and other places where you buy.
Yes,
online.
To be honest, it's wherever Image comics are sold. So I don't necessarily know what their when their timing is for digital versus.
That's fair shot.
But so we're definitely following their lead.
I had it. Where did I have it? I've got so many windows open right now that I could not believe where I am. Give me 2 seconds. For those that are interested in the book, if you give me 2 moments, I will give you the diamond code. I know Marvel don't always use diamond, but sorry about that. Oh, yes, they do. It is AUG, so that's AUG, Alpha Uniform Golf, 230429. I'll make sure that goes in the blurb underneath the episode, so you can get that. Get down to your local comic book shops, get it on pre-order. Retails at $4.99, which isn't a bad price if you're getting shed loads more pages.
Yep, more pages, resource guide in the back.
Yeah, excellent. I absolutely applaud the efforts of including outlines and resources because, people affected by similar, I don't want to say similar situations because that seems impersonal, with their own mental health difficulties, can see, Naomi, you're here, you're working, you're doing fantastic, you're doing really well. And of course, now the support's in the back of the book as well, so they're going to help from that point of view. Well done. Excellent.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us, because
you're more than welcome.
Spread the word. It is appreciated.
You can follow Ethan on Twitter. Yes, it's still Twitter. It hasn't changed in the last 20 minutes. It might change by the time you read this. I don't know when the app changes. I don't know. Anyway, there it is. I was going to say Ethan Jackson. What's the J stand for?
Jeremy. Because there are very few other Ethan Sacks, but there is at least one that was faster to register a Twitter account.
I'm such a pedant. I have my personal email address. I've just used it when I logged on to social media for the first time. I just used it everywhere. There's absolutely no resonance other than the fact that it's the thing I can remember. Yes, Naomi, I'm that old. I have to do that. Yes. Oh my God. See what I have to do. All right. Excellent. 30-second pitch. Tell everyone why they should be buying and pre-ordering A Haunted Girl.
Well, A Haunted Girl is first a horror story that hopefully everyone finds entertaining, but there's an extra level as well, and that is we hope to be inspiring to people going through their own mental health struggles, and also provide just a little bit of hope and maybe some resources if you need to know where to get started. Anything you want to add to it? Or?
Cool visuals, cool writing team. Never seen before, you know.
Cool, excellent, very good, well done. Right, guys, that's it for the end of this show. I will have to say thank you to Ethan, Naomi, for spending the time with me to talk about a very powerful and personal subject. Thank you so much, and Naomi, thank you so much for the honesty with the questions. I really do appreciate it. You know that. I know it can be difficult to talk about stuff, so I genuinely appreciate your bravery massively. Don't forget to check out the UCPM for all your other favorite shows, including, you saw the trailer for it earlier, the No Prize podcast. And if, like Ethan, you like DC Comics, don't dismay. You've got the definitive crusade for all you DC diehards out there. Probably won't talk about many movies because that crew don't go to the pictures, apparently. So, sorry about that. And if you like your comics of a certain vintage, check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. There you go. Ethan, Naomi, thank you once again.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome. And I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes. And as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.shop, all about comic pop culture.